guys, this is Shanks with NDD Raid School. I'm going to give a quick guide on Prot Paladin enchanting, gemming, and specs. If you want more detailed information, I'll link a couple guides in the description, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment or ask me on my tune Angelic Wrath on the server Crush Ridge. If you're guilty, I'll be happy to hop in an event and talk to you for a bit. If you're not, just ask me nicely and I'll help you out. I'm going to start off with going over the spec. Now I'm going to link the full spec in the description, so I'm just going to go over some debated talents. First off, in the Holy Tree, Seals of the Pure. Now we haven't taken this since Old War. What it does is it increases your seal and judgment damage by 15% for 5 points. The reason we haven't done this since Old War is that in the Retribution tree we have a talent called Crusade, which increases your damage by 6%. But it'll only increase your damage by 3% unless you're fighting humanoids, demons, undead, and elementals. Now we didn't have any of those in Old War, so we took Seals of the Pure. But now that we're in Icecrown and we have all those, we take Crusade. The Seals of the Pure is just a wasted 5 points right now. In the Protection tree, hotly debated one is called Divinity. Now this increases all healing done by you and to you by 5% for 5 talent points. This one looks good, but it's a little lackluster for mainly that it just contributes to overheals. The only time that you would need this is if you're trying to survive. And the only time survival is an issue in current content is not because your health is depleting quickly and that the healers can't keep up with it, like it's depleting steadily, but it's because it's spiking down really quickly. You're taking 50 something K hits every so often, and then the healers have to heal you back up. It's not whether or not they can heal you up, it's whether or not they can get the cast off quick enough. So that 5%, those 5 talent points are just contributing to overheals, and it's a waste. It's nice on fights where you don't need it. It's nice when you're taking consistent slow damage, but it doesn't help because you're not going to die anyways, and the healers don't really need that extra help. They're not even going to account for it. Next is Reckoning, which gives you a 10% chance after being hit that the next 4 weapon swings within 8 seconds will generate an additional attack. The problem with this is that this only adds to your white hits, which is melee damage, which is not holy damage, which isn't modified by your righteous fury, which means it doesn't give you a lot of threat. So don't take that one either; it's a waste of 5 points. Next, we have Spiritual Attunement. Now you take 1 point in this. A lot of tanks will take 2, especially when they're starting out, but that extra 5% mana you get is wasted in a raid encounter. You're getting topped off so much, and you have so much replenishment in the raid and stuff that mana is a non-issue on most fights in raid encounters. The only time that this would be helpful is if you're doing heroics, but the solution to that, instead of wasting one talent point for a heroic, is to just pull more mobs. You pull more mobs and your Blessing of Sanctuary gives you more mana, you take more damage, and then that 1 point will give you more mana than it will to just put an extra point in there. Next, we have Touched by the Light, which is right here. Increases your spell power by an amount equal to 60% of your strength, and increases the amount healed by your critical heals by 30%. Now, ignoring the healing part, that 60% strength into spell power is really important for our threat. This is one of the main reasons why we don't have to use a spell power weapon anymore, like we used to have to in Burning Crusade. A lot of our abilities do have spell power coefficients, so this will majorly help your threat. Another talent is Judgments of the Just. Now the first part isn't really important, but the end says that our judgment spells also reduce the melee attack speed of the target by 20%. This is great for reducing incoming damage, but this debuff can not only be applied by another paladin, but it can also be applied by a warrior doing Thunder Stomp or Thunderclap. I'm not sure what it's called. But I don't know if they do that in their regular rotation, so you're going to have to ask your Prot Warrior and work it out whether or not you need to pick up this talent, or if you're running with another Prot Pal, you're good. Personally, I run a lot with a Death Knight, or else I'm not quite sure what my Groom composition is going to be, so I always pick up Judgments of the Just. It's a good safety net if you're not sure. Otherwise, those talents are just going to go to threat talents. Next, we have Improved Judgments. A lot of people take 1 point into this because you only need 1 point to make your rotation line up perfectly. But even if the rotation lines up perfectly, the players aren't perfect, and that extra 1 second when you're having latency or you're just lagging or whatever, not lagging, if you're just mentally lagging, will help you out. It's good to just pop that in there, make sure everything's okay. Next, we have Vindication. This is huge. Gives the Paladin's damaging attacks a chance to reduce the target's attack power by 574 for 10 seconds. Now, bosses don't have a lot of attack power, so you're just taking out a huge chunk of their damage with that 574 attack power. This can be applied by warriors and druids, but they have to actually use an ability to do it. Paladins are the only people who have a passive one. So unless your warrior or druid feels like applying this all the time for you, you should probably pick this up. Unless you're running with, again, another Prot Paladin who has it, or a Ret Pally. And personally, I always pick this up when I go Ret Spec. Next, we have Pursuit of Justice. Increases movement speed by 15%. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of fights where you have to move. This is extremely helpful. This can help you if you're having any latency problems, or for instance on Lich King with the Defiles. It'll help you to get out of there quickly. You know, every little bit helps. Movement speed is a big thing. If you don't have this, I suggest getting the enchant on your boots, which I don't have since I have it, which increases your run speed. Even though it's not as great as Pursuit of Justice and you're losing stamina, I suppose you can gain an extra 2% crit by putting that in Conviction. And that covers it for mainly the debatable talents. There might be a few others, but well, there's Seal of Command, I suppose. That's a good one for heroics or any kind of trash tanking. It isn't necessarily better than Seal of Vengeance, except for special cases, but it's easier to use. With Seal of Vengeance, you have to tab target to get your stacks up on different targets. With Seal of Command, you just have to, smack people and you're good. So that's more of a convenience talent than something that's necessary. I don't recommend it in any serious rating build because while you're only missing out on 1% crit, I mean, it's not worth it. You'll never use Seal of Command unless you really want to hold threat on trash. Personally, I don't have any problems. So all those debatable talent points that I've just talked about, or at least some of these ones that are specific to group buffs, if you don't need them, you take those points and you put them into Conviction, which will up your crit percent by up to 5%.